Some people don't just doubt you. They sit quietly in the shadows, secretly wishing you'd collapse under pressure. Have you ever felt their eyes waiting for you to stumble, to lose your cool, to hand them the pleasure of seeing you break? It's not always the insults that cut deepest. Sometimes it's the smirk, the loaded silence, the sly glance meant to push you into reaction. They don't want your words. They want your weakness. But what if I told you the most powerful revenge isn't shouting, fighting, or proving yourself? What if your silence could cut sharper than any insult? The Stoics discovered exactly that. Some people don't just question you. They quietly hope you'll fail. They watch and wait, longing for the moment you explode, the moment you hand them your piece on a silver platter. But here's the truth. You don't need anger, arguments, or even effort to make them regret it. The Stoics uncovered a weapon far more powerful than revenge: silence, composure, and undeniable results. They crave your reaction, but instead, you give them something far more destructive to their ego: indifference. Because the moment you stop feeding their chaos, their power dissolves. In this video, you'll discover how calmness becomes control, how silence becomes your shield, and how your quiet success can sting louder than 1,000 insults. You see, when someone throws an insult, whether it's a mocking smirk, a backhanded compliment, or even a silence so sharp it feels like a blade, they're not just speaking. They're testing you. They're watching closely, waiting to see if you'll flinch, if you'll snap, if you'll gift them the satisfaction of controlling your emotions. That's the real game. They don't need to defeat you with words. They only need you to defeat yourself with reaction. And here's the hard truth. The moment you bite back, they win. Your reaction becomes the proof they were hunting for. It validates their bitterness, confirms their control, and places the strings of your emotions right in their hands. Like a puppet master, they pull and you dance. The Stoics saw this centuries ago. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Think about that. The insult itself isn't the prison. It's your reaction that locks the door. Rise to every jab, every sideways glance, every attempt to undermine you, and you hand them the keys to your inner world. But imagine, just for a moment, what happens when you don't react. Imagine their insult striking you like a stone against a mountain, falling harmlessly to the ground. No fire, no spark, no chaos, just silence. That's when everything changes. Suddenly, they are the ones exposed. Suddenly, the power shifts, and it becomes undeniable who is truly in control. Rising above doesn't mean you don't feel it. Of course, words sting, disrespect cuts, betrayal leaves scars. But the higher strength isn't in pretending you're made of stone. It's in proving your dignity is stronger than your desire to lash out. Picture yourself as a mountain in a storm. The wind howls, the rain lashes, the lightning crashes, but the mountain doesn't move. It doesn't explain itself. It doesn't scream back at the storm. It simply remains. That stillness, that immovable presence, is what gives the mountain its power. And that is what Stoicism calls you to embrace. Not suppression, but sovereignty. Not coldness, but control. It is, at its core, emotional intelligence in its purest form. The wisdom to know what deserves your energy and what doesn't. That is the real secret. Your silence, when chosen consciously, is not emptiness. It is a message. It says, "I see you, but I will not dance for your attention. I hear you, but you do not get to take up space in my mind. I notice your attempt, but you will not dictate my peace." There is a particular kind of silence that unsettles people. Not the silence of fear, not the silence of shrinking away, but a dignified stillness. It unsettles them because it reflects their weakness back at them like a mirror. When you don't react, they are left face to face with their own bitterness, their own insecurity, their own noise. And nothing is more suffocating than being forced to confront yourself without distraction. I once saw this play out in a meeting. A man was humiliated publicly. His colleague made a condescending remark designed to embarrass him in front of the entire team. Everyone held their breath, waiting for the explosion, for the angry glare, the sarcastic comeback, the verbal counterattack. But instead, he simply smiled, nodded, and returned to his notes without saying a single word. In that instant, the entire atmosphere in the room shifted. The one who had tried to belittle him suddenly looked small, desperate, even insecure. And the man who remained calm walked out of that meeting with more respect than he had when he walked in. That is the power of not reacting. That is what true rising looks like. You must understand this. Every provocation is a test. And every time you remain composed, you pass with honors. Without speaking a word, you tell the world, I am not here to react. I am here to rise. That isn't weakness. It is strength refined through restraint. It is psychological boundaries in action. It is drawing the line not with arguments, but with presence. So the next time someone mocks your path, laughs at your progress, or questions your worth, pause. Feel that familiar urge to fire back, and then breathe. Let the moment pass through you like wind through the branches of a tree. Let them wonder why their insult did not land. Let them wrestle with your calm, because while they were expecting a fight, you gave them something far worse for their ego: indifference. And here's the twist. They will remember your silence far longer than they would ever remember your words. Because silence lingers, it echoes. It makes them question themselves in ways anger never could. That is the first step in making them regret their actions without you lifting a single finger. You don't need revenge when you have restraint. You don't need arguments when you have composure. And you don't need to strike back when your very presence reminds them that they no longer control you. Do not react, rise. That is where your true power begins. There is something profoundly unsettling about a person who refuses to be rattled. Most people are easy to provoke. Raise your voice, mock their choices, question their worth, and they hand you their emotions instantly. But when you remain calm, when you refuse to rise to the bait, you strip your opponent of the very control they crave. Think about it. Why do people push your buttons? Why do they poke at your insecurities? Because they want your reaction, anger, defensiveness, tears, anything that proves they still have access to your peace. Their entire strategy depends on your lack of discipline. The moment you erupt, they feel powerful. But the moment you stay calm, their plan collapses before their eyes. Calmness is not emptiness. Calmness is precision. It is quiet confidence. It is the unshakable reminder that not everything deserves your energy. And when you stay calm, you become a mirror, reflecting back their chaos and showing them that it never belonged to you in the first place. We saw how calmness becomes a mirror, reflecting back the chaos of others. Now let's step deeper into what this discipline truly looks like when it is tested in the real world. They shout, and your stillness exposes their desperation. They accuse, and your composure highlights their insecurity. Suddenly, the problem is no longer you, it is them. The Stoics called this the highest form of mastery, the governance of the self. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." In today's world, where every insult can be amplified online, this discipline is not just wisdom, it is survival. Think about it. Imagine a coworker who spreads rumors about you. They exaggerate your mistakes, twist your words, laugh behind your back. Their entire goal is to bait you into reacting, to confront them, to demand explanations, to fight on their terms. The average person might lash out in anger or beg for a chance to set the record straight. But you, practicing the way of the Stoic, choose a different path. You breathe, you observe. You remember that their noise does not change the truth. And instead of fighting their battle, you keep showing up. You work with discipline. You build consistency. You let your results speak louder than your words. Over time, the lies collapse under the weight of reality, and the very people who once listened to the gossip begin to notice the contrast, your steady presence versus their frantic noise. Who in the end do you think they will respect? Understand this, calmness does not mean you don't feel. Of course you feel. The sting of betrayal, the heat of injustice. You are human. But emotional intelligence means you don't hand those feelings over to anyone else. You hold them, you discipline them, and you transform them into focus. You refuse to let another person's chaos dictate the state of your soul. That refusal, an invisible line drawn in silence, is what truly breaks their control. I once knew a man whose reputation was attacked online. Anonymous comments accused him of things he had never done. His friends urged him to fight back, to post long statements, to hire lawyers, to clear his name immediately. But he didn't. He kept working. He kept living. He kept moving forward. And months later, the truth surfaced on its own. His calmness didn't just protect him, it exposed his accuser. Because when you don't join the chaos, you force the chaos to reveal itself. This is the power of calmness. It outlasts the storm. Picture the ocean. The surface ripples wildly in the wind, but deep beneath, the water remains vast and unshakable. That is what your inner life must become. Not reactive, not tossed around by every opinion, but anchored. Anchored in clarity. Anchored in self-worth. Anchored in principles that do not bend under pressure. People will misinterpret this strength. They will call you cold, distant, detached. Let them, because they do not understand. Your calm is not the absence of care. It is the presence of control. You are not ignoring them because you are weak. You are ignoring them because they no longer deserve access to your attention. Protect your peace as if it were sacred, because it is. Every time you remain calm while someone else loses their balance, you reinforce your own power. And here lies the irony. The one who tries hardest to disturb your calm ends up revealing more about themselves than about you. Their desperate need to provoke you is a confession of weakness, of insecurity, of fear. So the next time someone pokes, prods, or provokes, pause. Don't give them the satisfaction of watching you lose yourself. Instead, let them drown in the silence of your composure. Let your calmness force them to face themselves. That is the kind of wound they never expected. The kind that does not come from retaliation, but from the chilling realization that they have no control over you. And here is the deeper Stoic truth. Calmness is not passive. It is active discipline. It is strategy. It is self-mastery in motion. Anyone can shout. Anyone can argue. But it takes true strength to remain still. To let your presence speak louder than your pride. Calmness isn't just your defense, it is your offense. It disarms, it exposes, and it unravels those who survive on drama. And when they realize their usual weapons no longer work on you, the battle is already lost. So remember this. Your calm is your command. Protect it, live in it, and watch how quickly the ones who despise you begin to fall apart when their chaos collides with your silence. Because an insult is never just a word, it is a trap. Every sharp remark, every passive-aggressive jab, every twisted accusation is bait. The goal is not simply to wound you, it is to lure you into wasting your energy on people who never deserved it in the first place. If you take the bait, you hand them the only thing they truly wanted, your attention. The Stoics understood this long ago. They taught that words only carry power when we grant them power. If someone throws a spark and you refuse to offer fuel, the fire dies before it even begins. That is the essence of Stoic indifference. It is not apathy. It is not coldness. It is clarity. It is the conscious choice to remain free. To never let someone else's noise dictate the atmosphere of your mind. Picture this. You are in a meeting, calmly sharing your perspective. A colleague interrupts, smirks, and tries to cut you down with sarcasm. Every part of you wants to fire back, to prove them wrong, to put them in their place. But instead, you remain steady. You finish your thought, speak with precision, and move on without even acknowledging the jab. The room notices. They see the difference between your composure and their desperation. And suddenly, the one who tried to appear powerful is revealed as small. That is the quiet strength of indifference. It doesn't mean you don't feel the sting. It means you've trained yourself to know what deserves your response and what doesn't. Here is the truth. Not every word is worthy of your reply. Not every critic deserves your energy. Some voices only echo because we keep replaying them in our minds long after the moment has passed. Marcus Aurelius once asked, "Why do we value the opinions of others more than our own?" A piercing question. How many nights have you replayed a remark over and over, carrying someone else's bitterness as if it were your burden to bear? That is not strength, that is slavery. And Stoicism calls you to break that chain. Indifference is mastery of your attention. It is the filter that protects your self-worth from being contaminated by the unworthy. It whispers, if this insult won't matter in 7 days, it doesn't deserve 7 seconds of your reaction. But let's be clear. Indifference is not silence in the face of abuse. It is not pretending wrong is right. It is not tolerating violations of your boundaries. True indifference means you understand the difference between a real threat and emotional bait. You protect yourself from harm, yes, but you also protect yourself from wasting your life on petty battles that lead nowhere. And here is what makes indifference so devastating to those who despise you. It denies them the satisfaction of significance. When you respond, they feel important. When you defend, they feel powerful. But when you remain indifferent, they are forced to face the truth. They don't matter to you. And that realization cuts deeper than anything you could ever say. I once watched a woman handle a co-worker who constantly tried to undermine her. He rolled his eyes during her presentations, muttered criticisms under his breath, and worked hard to diminish her ideas in front of leadership. Everyone could feel the tension. But instead of snapping back, she carried on with poise. She kept building her projects. She presented her work with clarity. And she let her results speak louder than his whispered attacks. Months passed. And eventually he became irrelevant, moved aside, forgotten. She rose. And here's the important part. She didn't rise because she fought him. She rose because she never gave him the fuel he craved. That's the lesson. Indifference is not avoidance. It's alignment. It's choosing to live so focused on your purpose that their attempts at distraction can't touch you. It is psychological boundaries in action. The decision to filter out what is beneath you so you can invest in what truly builds you. So the next time someone mocks your progress, twists your words, or questions your path, remember this. Their insult is not a reflection of your worth. It is a confession of their insecurity. Don't meet them there. Don't bend down to pick up what they throw. Keep walking. Let their words fall flat in the silence of your indifference. Because here is the truth. The one who cannot be provoked cannot be controlled. And when you choose indifference, not out of arrogance but out of clarity, you step into a kind of freedom most people will never know. You don't need to prove them wrong. You don't need to win them over. You don't even need them to understand your life, your actions, or your steady rise. That is your answer. And in the end, the most devastating truth they will face is this. They were never worthy of your reaction in the first place. There is a quiet kind of strength that unsettles those who despise you. Not because you fight back, not because you raise your voice, but because you refuse to betray your character. In a world addicted to shortcuts, manipulation, and drama, nothing rattles your enemies more than your refusal to compromise your values. Think about it. People who secretly hate you often expect you to break character when the pressure builds. They want you to stoop to their level, to gossip, to retaliate, to lash out. Because if they can drag you into their chaos, they win. They prove you're no different from them. But when you stand firm in virtue, when you remain calm, consistent, and rooted in principle, you deny them the victory they crave. The Stoics believed that virtue, living with wisdom, justice, courage, and self-discipline was the only true good. Not wealth, not reputation, not even survival itself, just the integrity of your soul. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." That single line is the death blow to envy, hatred, and malice. Because while others scramble to win a petty game, you win by refusing to play at all. Picture this. A colleague spreads lies about you, twisting your words, questioning your credibility. Your instinct might be to defend yourself, to gather allies, to fight back with equal force. But instead, you remain composed. You let your work speak. You let your consistency reveal the truth. And slowly, the contrast becomes undeniable. While they waste their energy scheming, you continue building. While they chase shadows, you walk steadily in light. And here's the thing about virtue. It protects you in ways retaliation never can. Retaliation may feel satisfying in the moment, but it ties you to the one who hurt you. Virtue, on the other hand, sets you free. Even if you lose something in the short term, an opportunity, a reputation, you walk away with the only wealth that truly matters, self-respect. And self-respect, once gained, becomes a weapon few people understand. We saw that self-respect and virtue form the shield that no attack can pierce. Now let's take a closer look at how that shield is revealed. Not in what you say, but in the way you carry yourself. Everyone notices it, even if they can't explain it. It's in the way you move with calm certainty while others scramble to justify themselves. It's in the quiet strength of your presence. People may not have the words for it, but they feel it. You become untouchable because your worth is not determined by circumstance, gossip, or recognition. It comes from within. Living with virtue has another hidden power. It exposes your enemies in ways words never could. When you remain true to your principles, their tactics collapse under their own weight. Their lies unravel. Their envy looks small, almost childish against your steady consistency. Their cruelty feels hollow against your dignity. And in time, the very people they tried to turn against you begin to see the truth for themselves. But let's be honest. Virtue isn't easy. It will cost you something. You may lose friends who prefer flattery over honesty. You may lose opportunities that demand compromise. You may even be mocked for refusing to bend when bending would be easier. But what you gain is far greater: peace of mind that cannot be bought, clarity of purpose that cannot be shaken, and the rare strength of someone who cannot be broken. Seneca once said, "A good character, once established, is not easily overthrown." That is the shield virtue builds around you. It doesn't mean you will never face attacks. It means those attacks won't stick. They will slide off the surface of a life lived with integrity. Because while others obsess over how they are perceived, you focus only on who you are becoming, and that is what truly unsettles those who despise you. They expect you to fight, to break, to prove yourself. But when you rise above again and again, when you continue to walk with grace and principle, you rob them of their weapon. They can't drag you down if you refuse to descend. This is the paradox of Stoic victory. You don't win by defeating your enemies. You win by mastering yourself, by living with virtue so consistently that their malice becomes irrelevant. By building a life so aligned with your values that no rumor, no insult, no betrayal can shake its foundation. So when they lie, let them. When they provoke, stay calm. When they hate, rise anyway. Your actions, your consistency, your virtue, these will be your answer. And in time, they will speak louder than any defense you could ever give. Because in the end, you don't defeat those who hate you by becoming like them. You defeat them by proving day after day that nothing they do can make you abandon who you are. That is the kind of strength that cannot be faked, cannot be shaken, and cannot be forgotten. There is a special kind of silence that unsettles people far more than words ever could. Not the silence of fear, not the silence of defeat, but the silence of discipline, the quiet, steady rhythm of someone who shows up day after day, doing the work, building in the background, while others waste their energy watching, doubting, and hoping for your collapse, your enemies, your critics. Even those who pretend to be friends but secretly root for your failure, they're not waiting for one dramatic downfall. They are counting on your inconsistency. They expect you to quit when it gets hard. They expect you to grow tired, distracted, or discouraged. They expect you to fade away quietly so they can tell themselves you were never strong to begin with. And that is why your discipline wounds them deeper than any insult ever could. Because you don't quit, you don't collapse, you don't fade, you simply keep going. We saw that discipline is what unsettles your enemies most. Because you don't quit, you don't collapse, you just keep going. Now let's uncover why the Stoics believed that self-mastery, expressed through discipline, is the highest form of power. The Stoics taught that mastery of the self is the greatest strength a human being can possess. You cannot control the storms of life. You cannot silence every critic. You cannot prevent envy, betrayal, or malice from crossing your path. But you can control one thing: whether or not you keep walking forward. Discipline is the proof that you are not ruled by moods, opinions, or circumstances. Discipline is your quiet declaration that you are building something greater than their noise. Think for a moment about someone in your life who doubted you. Maybe they laughed at your dream, rolled their eyes at your effort, or whispered behind your back that you wouldn't last. At first, their words sting, they cut deep. But as the months pass, as you keep showing up quietly, steadily, your results begin to speak in a language louder than gossip. They can deny your worth in conversation, but they cannot deny the evidence of your discipline. Because discipline is cumulative. It builds over time, layer by layer, brick by brick, until one day the very people who dismissed you are forced to see what you have created, something undeniable, something their words can never erase. And that realization wounds deeper than any argument ever could. This is the irony. People who hate you don't want you to rise, they want you to burn out. They want to watch you self-destruct so they don't have to confront their own lack of effort. Your consistency forces them into a mirror they don't want to look at. Every time you show up, every time you keep going despite setbacks, you remind them of what they could be, but chose not to become. That's why discipline is more than personal growth. It is also silent revenge. You don't have to gloat. You don't have to announce your victories. You don't even have to explain yourself. Your progress is the answer. Your persistence is the punishment. But let's be clear. Discipline is not about grinding endlessly or exhausting yourself without rest. The Stoics were not fanatics. They believed in balance, in harmony with nature, in living a steady life. Discipline is about alignment. It is the choice to act on your values rather than your impulses. It is saying, this matters to me, and I will act like it matters. Even when no one is watching, even when it is not easy, even when no one else believes in you. And here is the beauty of it. Discipline creates peace. When you live consistently with your purpose, you no longer need to explain yourself. You no longer need to convince anyone of your path. You just walk it. And in time, your life itself becomes the loudest statement you could ever make. Think about a mountain. It does not argue with the wind. It does not prove its strength with words. It simply stands. That is what discipline makes you, a presence that cannot be ignored. Others may mock, doubt, or even shame you, but you remain. And eventually, your stillness breaks them, because they cannot move what will not move. This is why the Stoics taught that discipline is freedom. Freedom from distraction. Freedom from petty battles. Freedom from the chaos of emotions that try to derail you. When you live with discipline, You reclaim your energy from the meaningless and invest it in what truly matters. And those who hate you, they can't stand it. Because while they waste their days feeding envy, chasing drama, and reacting to noise, you are quietly building a life they cannot touch. And that life, solid, steady, undeniable, is the sharpest response of all. So remember this. Let your discipline speak for you. Let your results silence their doubts. Let your persistence remind them that their words were never enough to stop you. You don't need to lift a finger against those who hate you. Just keep showing up. We learned that discipline is freedom, the quiet strength that silences doubts and builds a life no one can take away. Now, let's see how discipline and adversity work together to create a kind of power that nothing can destroy. Just keep building. Just keep living with such consistency that their bitterness collapses under the weight of your growth. Because in the end, discipline is the one thing they cannot fake, they cannot steal, and they cannot destroy. And when discipline becomes the rhythm of your life, you become untouchable. Adversity has a way of revealing people. Some crumble at the first sign of pressure. Some retreat and hide. Others grow bitter, poisoning themselves with resentment. But for those who understand the Stoic path, adversity is never the end. It is the forge. It is the fire that shapes you into something stronger than you ever imagined yourself to be. The people who secretly root for your downfall know this as well. They may not always attack you directly. Often they simply wait. They wait for life itself to do the damage. They wait for failure to silence you, for heartbreak to drain you, for disappointment to break your spirit. To them, adversity is the weapon that will finish what they could not. But here's the irony. They don't realize that the very thing they hope will destroy you is the very thing that makes you unshakable. The Stoics were always clear about this truth. Life will test you. Pain, betrayal, and setbacks are not exceptions. They are the rule. And yet Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Adversity is not the roadblock. It is the road itself. Think back to a time when everything seemed to collapse around you. Maybe you lost something you thought you could never live without. Maybe betrayal cut deeper than any wound you had ever felt before. Maybe you were brought so low that even getting out of bed felt like a battle in itself. And yet, you endured. You survived. And not only that, you emerged different, sharper, wiser, stronger. That is what those who hate you cannot stand. They are not just watching your pain. They are hoping it ends you. But when you rise again, when you use the storm as training rather than destruction, they are forced to face the truth. You are not fragile. You are forged. Adversity strips away illusions. It takes what you thought was solid and burns it down to ash. But in that fire, it also reveals what cannot be destroyed. Your character, your resilience, your discipline. And if you embrace it, adversity does not weaken you. It builds you into someone untouchable. Resilience is not the absence of pain. It is the decision to keep walking even when pain follows close behind. It is waking up after loss and saying, "I will continue." It is standing tall when life shoves you to your knees and refusing to stay there. And every time you make that choice, those who wanted you broken suffer because they realize they cannot win. They cannot stop someone who uses pain as fuel. They cannot defeat someone who has learned to turn every setback into strength. Adversity is also the great revealer. Anyone can look composed when life is smooth, when nothing tests them. But the true test comes when it all falls apart. That is when real character is revealed. That is when you learn whether your peace was just comfort or whether it was discipline. The Stoics did not seek suffering, but they welcomed it when it arrived. Because they knew that every challenge carries a hidden gift. Loss teaches detachment. Betrayal teaches discernment. And hardship, if embraced, teaches you that you are far stronger than you once believed. We saw that adversity is not a curse. It is the forge that shapes you, burning away what is weak so that only what is unbreakable remains. Now let's take this truth one step further. Hardship teaches endurance, and together these lessons shape a person no enemy can shake. So when you face adversity, remember this: it is not your punishment. It is your preparation. It is life chiseling away the unnecessary, sculpting your character so that what is left is solid, steady, and indestructible. Let your enemies wait for your collapse. Let them whisper that you won't survive the storm, and then let them watch, powerless as you rise from it, scarred perhaps, but steadier, fiercer, and more unshakable than before. Because in the end, adversity does not decide your story. You do. And if you choose to let it build you instead of break you, then every hardship becomes another stone in the foundation of your strength. That's the lesson your enemies will never understand. You don't just endure adversity, you use it. And in using it, you rise beyond their reach. In a world addicted to noise, silence has become the rarest form of power. Everyone wants the last word, the clever comeback, the chance to prove themselves. But the Stoics understood a deeper truth. Silence is not weakness, it is strategy. And when used with intention, silence can wound deeper than any insult. Think about the people who hate you, the ones who mock, provoke, and bait you with subtle jabs. What they crave is your reaction. They want to see you flinch, stumble, defend yourself. They want proof that their words reached your soul. But what happens when you offer nothing? No defense, no rage, not even acknowledgement. Just calm, steady silence. Suddenly, the spotlight shifts. Their attack no longer exposes you. It exposes them. This kind of silence unsettles people. It forces them to face the emptiness of their own noise. They throw accusations into the air, but without your reaction, those accusations echo back at them, unsupported, hollow, meaningless. And in that vacuum, they begin to look desperate, petty, and weak. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." Silence embodies that principle. You are not stooping to their level. You are not matching fire with fire. You are standing still. And in that stillness, you declare, "You don't move me. You don't control me. You don't deserve a piece of my peace." There is a reason silence feels heavier than words. Words can be twisted, debated, spun into endless arguments. But silence is final. It leaves no opening. It leaves them hanging in their own chaos, forced to wrestle with the echo of their bitterness without your participation. I once knew a man who was attacked publicly, accused of things he never did. Everyone expected outrage, a heated defense, perhaps even a dramatic confrontation. But he gave nothing. He kept living, kept working, kept building. Months later, the truth revealed itself, and his silence spoke louder than any defense ever could. His enemies looked like liars, and he looked untouchable. That is the power of silence. It doesn't just protect your dignity, it destroys their illusion of control. Because while they shout, you rise. While they fight shadows, you build substance. Of course, silence is not about running away. It is not about fear. It is not about refusing to speak when speaking is necessary. Silence is about knowing when words are wasted. It is about choosing to guard your energy like a sacred flame and refusing to hand it to people who live on drama. Picture this. Someone spreads rumors about you, twisting the story, trying to stain your reputation. The urge to defend yourself is strong, but the Stoic within you pauses. You ask, will defending myself change the truth? Will their noise alter my reality? And the answer is no. And so, you let silence speak. We saw that silence, when chosen from strength, exposes the emptiness of your enemy's noise and leaves them powerless. Now let's go deeper into why silence, combined with integrity, becomes one of the strongest shields you will ever carry. Because silence says, I am too focused on building my life to argue with shadows. And here's the secret. Silence doesn't mean nothing is happening. While you say nothing, you are still growing. While you stay calm, you are still building. While they waste time fueling gossip, you are quietly crafting results. And when those results finally appear, your silence will have been the loudest reply of all. Your enemies never expect silence. They expect anger, tears, defensiveness. They expect a fight. But when they receive nothing, no reaction, no attention, they are left powerless, gnawing on their own frustration. That is why silence hurts them more deeply than any retaliation ever could. So the next time someone tries to drag you into their chaos, remember this: not every provocation deserves a response. Sometimes the strongest move is no move at all. Let them swing at the air. Let them shout into the void. Your silence will echo louder than their noise. Because silence, when chosen from strength, is not absence. It is presence. It is a message that says, I don't need to prove myself to you. I am already beyond your reach. And that, more than anything else, is what they will never forget. There is a kind of strength that doesn't roar, doesn't boast, doesn't even seek recognition. It is the quiet force of integrity. The decision to remain whole when the world tries to fracture you. And nothing unsettles those who hate you more than your refusal to compromise who you are. Enemies thrive on hypocrisy. They wait for cracks in your armor. They want to catch you slipping so they can prove your words and actions don't align. Because if they can expose a weakness in your character, they can dismiss your strength as nothing but a facade. That is why standing firm in integrity is such a devastating weapon. It denies them the satisfaction of watching you collapse into contradiction. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Integrity is exactly that. It is the consistent choice to live aligned with what you claim to value. It is the courage to do the right thing, even when no one is watching, even when it costs you. And that consistency builds a shield stronger than any defense you could ever speak aloud. Think of the people who have tried to break you. Maybe they betrayed you, slandered you, twisted the truth to fit their agenda. They wanted you to retaliate in kind, lie for lie, betrayal for betrayal. But when you refuse, when you protect your integrity and keep it intact, you don't just shield your soul. You expose theirs. Integrity is magnetic. People may not always understand it, but they feel it. They notice when someone stands tall without cutting corners. They notice when someone refuses to cheat, even when they could get away with it. And over time, integrity builds credibility, and credibility builds unshakable influence. Your enemies might spread lies, but your character will always outlast their noise. And here is the paradox. Integrity often looks like weakness in the short term. You may lose opportunities, friends, even status by refusing to bend. People might mock you for being too rigid or too honest. But in the long run, integrity always wins. Because while others build on sand, you build on rock. And when storms come, and they always do, your foundation holds, while theirs crumbles. Seneca reminded us, "No man can have a peaceful life who thinks too much about lengthening it or believes that living through many consolations is a great blessing." What he meant is simple. Peace does not come from clinging to outcomes or appearances. Peace comes from knowing you lived rightly, no matter the cost. That is the unshakable core integrity gives you, and your enemies hate this, because it leaves them powerless. They cannot tempt you with shortcuts. They cannot bait you into lies. They cannot control a soul that refuses to compromise. We learned that integrity is not just your shield. It is your legacy, the foundation that storms cannot destroy. Now let's see how integrity, paired with detachment, gives you a kind of strength that no enemy can reach. They cannot drag you into the mud without your consent. Integrity makes you untouchable. Not because you are flawless, but because you are consistent. And consistency terrifies those who thrive on manipulation. Think about it. When someone tries to tarnish your name, what happens if your character is already known? Their words lose weight. Their lies collapse when stacked against a lifetime of truth. And while they scramble to justify themselves, you continue moving forward, grounded in who you are. Integrity also carries another hidden power. It builds self-respect. Every time you choose to act with honor, even when no one is watching, you reinforce your bond with yourself. You prove to your own soul that you are trustworthy, that you can rely on you. And that inner trust becomes a fortress no enemy can breach. So when the world provokes you, when people tempt you to abandon your principles for quick revenge or hollow victories, remember this: integrity is the real battlefield. Every compromise chips away at your foundation, but every act of alignment makes you unbreakable. And when your enemies see that, when they realize you cannot be bought, bent, or broken, they will suffer in silence. Why? Because your life itself becomes a mirror, reflecting back everything they lack. They may throw stones, but they cannot touch the foundation built on integrity. That's why the strongest response to hate is not rage, not retaliation, but simply this: to stand firm in who you are, to live so consistently that no lie, no betrayal, no manipulation can rewrite your story. Integrity is not just your defense, it is the legacy you leave behind. But there is another power, one that works hand in hand with integrity: detachment. And this is not coldness, not bitterness disguised as indifference, but the calm, deliberate choice to no longer let someone else's actions dictate your peace. Detachment is freedom, and freedom is the one thing your enemies never want you to have. People who despise you feed on your reactions. They want you angry, emotional, consumed by proving them wrong. Because the more you focus on them, the less you focus on yourself. But the moment you step back, the moment you detach, their grip dissolves. They cannot control what they cannot reach. The Stoics understood this deeply. Epictetus said, "We suffer not from the events in our lives, but from our judgment about them." Detachment is about changing the lens. Instead of asking, "Why did they do this to me?" you ask, "Why should I give them the power to shape my life?" That shift turns betrayal into fuel for growth, rather than chains that bind you. Detachment does not mean you stop caring about life or people. It means you refuse to be enslaved by outcomes, by validation, or by the drama others create. It is the strength to walk away when staying would cost you your peace. And that walk-away power is terrifying to those who once thrived on controlling you. Picture this. Someone tries to drag you into conflict, hurling accusations, playing the victim. In the past, you might have argued for hours, trying to defend yourself. But now, you simply step back. You do not play. You do not feed the fire. You move forward with calm clarity. That single act of detachment cuts deeper than any words, because they expected war and you gave them nothing. And here's the beauty. Detachment also strengthens resilience. When your happiness no longer depends on how others treat you, you become unshakable. And an unshakable soul is the one enemy no one can ever defeat. We saw that integrity and detachment make you unshakable. But here lies an even deeper truth. They can betray you, slander you, abandon you, yet none of it can ever touch the core of your peace. And that frustrates them more than anything because it proves you are no longer theirs to manipulate. This is how you rise, not through revenge, not through retaliation, but through the refusal to let their chaos define your path. You rise by focusing only on what you can control, your discipline, your growth, your purpose. And when you do this, their power begins to evaporate. The truth is simple. People hate what they cannot control, and detachment makes you uncontrollable. You are no longer tied to their approval, their lies, or their games. You are free, and freedom is the one victory your enemies can never take back. So rise through detachment. Let them talk. Let them plot. Let them waste their energy in shadows. Meanwhile, you have a life to build, a peace to protect, and a destiny far too important to be distracted. When you detach, you don't just survive, you ascend. And nothing destroys your enemies faster than watching you rise far beyond their reach. In the end, the greatest way to wound those who hate you is not through words, not through revenge, not even through confrontation. The most powerful response is the life you live. Calm, steady, disciplined, undeniable. They said you would never succeed, never find peace, that you would eventually break. But your refusal to crumble is the answer. That is what they can never silence. Your enemies don't fear your arguments. They fear your growth. They don't fear your anger. They fear your elevation. Because nothing unsettles them more than watching you thrive without them, watching your light shine even brighter from the very darkness they once tried to trap you in. The Stoics knew this well. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." In other words, stop explaining, stop defending, stop justifying. Live in such a way that your actions speak louder than their accusations. And here's the secret. When you live well, you don't just silence your enemies, you expose them. Your peace makes their chaos look childish. Your discipline makes their laziness obvious. Your resilience makes their bitterness impossible to hide. You reveal the truth without saying a single word. They thought they buried you, but in reality, they only planted you. That's why the smartest response to hate is progress. Keep building, keep improving, keep protecting your peace. The people who wish you harm expect you to waste your energy trying to prove them wrong. But when you no longer care about their opinion, when you are too busy becoming who you were meant to be, you rob them of their weapon. They are left powerless, forced to stand on the sidelines as your life itself becomes the proof they cannot deny. Of course, life will still bring challenges. You will still face setbacks, betrayals, and disappointments. But instead of breaking you, these trials refine you. Each scar becomes part of your foundation. Each loss becomes fuel for your rise. And as you keep moving forward, your enemies are forced to face the bitter truth. Nothing they did could stop you. Seneca once said, "The greatest revenge is to be unlike your enemy." When you refuse to match their malice with malice, when you choose growth over grudges, peace over pettiness, you achieve a victory far greater than revenge. You don't just defeat them, you transcend them. So let your life be the ultimate answer. Let your calmness outshine their chaos. Let your growth overshadow their envy. Let your joy, your peace, and your quiet strength remind them that they failed, that every attempt to break you only made you stronger. And remember this, your enemies don't deserve your words. They deserve your silence. They don't deserve your energy. They deserve the pain of watching you rise. Because in the end, nothing hurts them more than your unshakable peace, your unstoppable discipline, and your undeniable success. This is the wisest way to deal with those who hate you. You don't fight them, you outgrow them. You don't waste your fire trying to prove them wrong. You use that fire to build a life so powerful, so disciplined, so peaceful, that their hatred shrinks into nothing. The Stoics remind us, your mind is your kingdom. Guard it well. That is your real victory. Not revenge, not their approval, but the unshakable peace of knowing you mastered yourself while they remained trapped in bitterness. So walk forward with calm confidence. Protect your boundaries, build your discipline, and let your life, your growth, your peace, and your success be the loudest answer to every shadow that once tried to break you. Because the truth is this, they cannot destroy what they cannot reach. And when you live with clarity, inner strength, and unwavering purpose, they will realize, too late, that their hate never touched you. If this message resonates with you, don't just nod and move on. Make it a vow. Type "I rise above" in the comments. Let it be your quiet declaration that you choose peace over pettiness, growth over grudges, and discipline over drama. And if you are ready to master your mind, protect your peace and rise higher every single day, subscribe now and join this journey. Because here on Life Through Stoicism, we don't just talk about philosophy, we live it. The best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's living so well that their hatred becomes irrelevant. Protect your peace, guard your mind, and let your life be the victory they never saw coming.